Welcome to the program. I'm State Representative Stephen Bloom. One of the biggest and most important challenges facing the state legislature each year is the adoption of a budget. The process is expected to be especially difficult this year as the state faces a revenue shortfall of at least $4 billion. Let's spend 5 minutes talking about the subject with House Appropriations Chairman Bill Adolph. Bill, thanks for being here.
Nice to be here, Steve.
First off, for the past 8 years, we have not had an on-time budget by the June 30th deadline in Pennsylvania. What do you think the prospects are this year?
Well, that's one thing I can assure your viewers, that we're going to get this budget done on time. Prior to the Rendell administration, the constitutional time is June 30th. And we used to take that very serious. For some reason, the Rendell administration either started too late with the negotiations or was just really, really difficult to deal with. And our job over the last 8 years was just trying to decrease all the increases. And they still called it cuts. When we decreased an increase,
they called that a cut.
They called that a cut. So we had some terrible times passing a budget. 1 year, about 2 years ago, went almost into December, almost 6 or 7 months late. So, and that puts a lot of fiscal pain on a lot of our school districts, a lot of our higher ed folks, a lot of our social agencies, an awful lot of fiscal pain. They had to borrow money in order to pay their bills. So I can assure you, Steve, that is not going to happen this year.
Well, that's good news. Can you give our viewers an idea where the state gets its revenues? We'll talk about the budget, and we're trying to match revenues with expenses.
Sure.
Where does the state get its revenues?
Sure. We get our revenues by taxes and fees. We don't sell anything here. It's strictly what the residents pay in personal income tax. That's our largest revenue source, and that's about 38% of our revenue. The second one is Pennsylvania sales tax, roughly 31%, Steve. Corporate net income tax comes in at about 10%, and then the balance is Pennsylvania inheritance taxes, some miscellaneous capital stock and franchise taxes, and so forth. And altogether, we take in about $26 billion in state revenue.
Okay, and on the expense side, where I think the focus is going to be, because Governor Corbett has committed publicly to not raising taxes. I know many of us in the Republican caucus have also committed to saying that we are not going to vote to support any tax increases. What's on the spending side, and where are some areas that when we see this budget this year, we might be looking at making some cuts in order to match the revenues and the expenses?
Well, it's very simple. There's two line items that make up 80% of our state budget: education and welfare. If you include higher ed, with a K to 12, that's 42% of our state budget. The next item is welfare, which is about 37% of our state budget. So between those two, that's probably where you're going to see the biggest decreases. And I want to emphasize, Steve, to you that those areas receive the most federal stimulus money. And that's really where the spending took place, where it wasn't sustainable. There's one-time monies. Was supposed to be for one-time programs, and last year the final budget was around $28 billion. Almost $3 billion of that was federal stimulus money, 10% of the total revenue. So you're probably going to see, somewhere between $3 billion in decrease in government spending. I just want to.
And we don't have much time left, so.
No, that's right. And the one thing, though, I think viewers have to understand and taxpayers have to understand is that if we would have just spent like everybody else in the last 8 years, consumer price index our state spending would have been somewhere around $24–25 billion. So it's not as if by cutting back $3 billion, we're going to go back to some type of archaic spending. We'd be right where the cost of living would be if we would have just spent.
It's just bringing us back to fiscal responsibility and reality.
Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you have comments or questions about this or any other legislative topic, my contact information will be on the screen in a few seconds. I'm State Representative Stephen Bloom. Thanks for watching.